Hey, what's up, everybody? Look, so excited about this particular episode of Seat at the Table, entitled Black Excellence. I got some black successful brothers that I wanted to bring on set. But to give just folks some context, Seat at the Table is really a platform where we get individuals to come and be vulnerable and share their perspective on issues that are affecting our community. And so this one in particular, and this one's near and dear to my heart, I want to talk about black excellence because I want us to rethink what it's like to be black and to be successful, right? Not just the athlete or not just the entertainer. But there are a lot of folks that just aren't seen on set or in everyday life that are doing it, man. So let's start with this. Let's start with some introductions. If you could just say who you are, what you do for a living, it'll definitely add context. And we're going to start this way, kind of go around.
All right. Pardon me, Scott Johnson. I work as a customer success manager at Microsoft from Somerset, New Jersey.
Nice, good stuff.
Ronaldo Da Silva, President and CEO of eSOAR Consulting Group, which is a Salesforce consulting partner.
Awesome.
I'm Rasheem Donaldson. I'm an attorney. I work for an agency in New York City, and I supervise a group of attorneys in juvenile delinquency work.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me.
Good to be here, man.
Will Mwange. I'm currently an enterprise account executive at Dell Technologies.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Look, let's get into it, man. I'm super pumped about this. And I love the fact that we got coverage from technology, we got coverage from legal, and I'm super pumped. But I want to start with this question, man. In terms of upbringing, like growing up, and I would love to hear everyone's point of view on this. Knowing where you are today, what kind of exposure did you get growing up in terms of like what did you see? Did you see yourself where you are today and your experiences growing up? And let's go around the horn. I mean, Will, you could probably just
Yeah, I would say it was unique for me in the sense I was always an optimist. I always thought I can reach, and if I work hard, good things will come. And it was just a domino effect. So going to school in Jersey City, I had the opportunity to go to St. George's, which is a private school up in Newport, Rhode Island. From there, I was able to get exposure to a different life, new set of people, different way of thinking. And as you know, I was probably one of 3 black people in my grade.
Yeah.
So definitely seeing the other side of the fence, but getting the resources to go to Hamilton, and just strive high, and then going to EMC, through you, and now at Dell Technologies. There's always, just knew that if I worked hard, just my parents, they lived the American dream, that I can do it too. So I was very fortunate to, have
Did
that
you
opportunity.
growing up, did you see technology? Did you see being in corporate America? Did you see being in some of those institutions and environments? Was that something that was common to you or expected of you growing up?
Not at all. Not at all. I didn't even know I wanted to get into technology until my senior year of college. I'm a public policy major, which is government. But at the end of the day, I just know through growing up how important applications, phones, how accessible data and information is so relevant. And it's something that you always have the opportunity to grow within your career. It's not going anywhere, right? Yeah. Technology is only going to grow. So I knew it would give me an opportunity to grow within sales and accelerate my career. So nice. I think it was a good decision.
How about you always wanted to be a lawyer?
No. So I grew up in the Bronx in New York City, and I spent most of my childhood in the Bronx, going to public schools. I went to Catholic school for a couple of years. I went to high school in Harlem, and then I lived in Washington Heights, which is like northern Manhattan. But those were predominantly low-income areas, so I didn't have exposure to lawyers. Most people I knew, if they had an interaction with the law, it was that they were arrested, family members, that sort of thing. So it was just a negative reaction to law. So for me, it was always just a lack of resources, but I seized opportunities. I had a good foundation at home. I seized scholarship opportunities through basketball. I got to travel. So even though I didn't have the best situation, I tried to make the most of those opportunities. And then I feel like I learned from failure. I'm seeing people not doing the right thing. They're not going to college. Maybe I should switch it up. Let me go to college. And certain decisions I made, I think really put me on a different trajectory. So I think there's a lot of grace, a lot of good fortune, ultimately.
So, and that's such a good point. And you bring up the whole legal aspect and how sometimes you saw folks' interaction with the law, whether they be getting in trouble or not. Did that play anything into you becoming an attorney? To be yo, look, I need to be out there defending some folks, make sure there's some kind of equal representation, or at least just looking at the judicial system as like, this is something we got to fix?
For me, when I think of the law, it's the whole concept of justice was fair and was right. So going to school in Harlem, a public high school, the Frederick Douglass Academy, I think they instilled some really good values, but I don't think I was fully prepared to go to college. So I went to Lafayette College, affluent, predominantly white school, which was a great institution, but then I just felt like it was inherently unjust that there are not many people from my community here.
Yeah.
The school was trying to work on diversity and they were doing that, but I feel like the kids my classmates were much more prepared than I was. They had resources, they had advantages, and I felt like this was an unfair fight. So
Correct.
I wanted to do something like pre-med. I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't like that. So I think law was like following my heart, like this is not fair. And then thinking about the groundbreaking attorneys who made change and affected change, they became mouthpieces because they had that arena and that venue. So I felt like education was my way to get there. And so I just ended up pursuing law by default almost, by seeing like where my heart was taking me.
That's dope. That's dope. And what about you guys? I know both of y'all in tech. You're a CEO, right? And you're a customer success manager. Tell me about like your upbringing. Like, what were you exposed to growing up? Are you surprised where you're at? Like, did that lead, man? I'd love to hear both of y'all on that.
I think that I appreciate the question. So I moved to the U.S. when I was 4 years old. I came from the Caribbean.
Okay.
Grew up in East Orange, Newark, New Jersey, and so I didn't know or see any CEOs growing up. Not one. The things that I saw growing up, I had a phenomenal support system at home. My parents didn't have much of anything, but they always found a way to keep the lights on sometimes, keep food on the table, and provide for me and my siblings. But I didn't see this. I didn't see this. The vision I had in my head when I was a kid was me holding a briefcase, not knowing how or what or where I was going to get to that point, or how I would get to that point. But that's the vision I had in my head as a kid. All my friends were, I grew up in the inner city. It's everything that you can read from a stereotypical inner city. That's what I grew up in. I believe it's only by the grace of God that I'm sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in now, doing what I'm doing now. Right. There's really no other explanation for it. I shouldn't be, there were just so many odds stacked against me, I should say, to prevent me from being where I am today. And it's only by the grace of God that I'm here. So no, to answer your question directly, I did not see or have any direct examples of anyone growing up that would guide me to where I'm sitting today. Technology was the farthest thing from my mind. Did not get introduced to technology until well after college, and now run a technology company.
That's dope, man. What are you, Scott?
Yeah, well, it didn't fall too far from the tree, say the apple, right? Because my father was in technology, right? Nice. So you take a look at, and probably being one of the elder statesmen here, right? Technology when I was growing up wasn't really technology of what we see today. Yeah. But my father being in technology from late 60s to 70s through 80s, I never thought I was going to do it because, I was an average student at best, right? Yeah. But after going to college, my passion was some of the things like these guys are doing behind the scenes, right? Working cameras and doing things like that. That was my passion. But after I graduated college, went to Delaware State, really learned a lot from a lot of mentors there. And after I got out of college, as the internet boom started in late 80s and 90s, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. After that was really taking those certifications, becoming more expandable and being able to branch out within the technology field. So that's what really got me going and being in tech for over 30-some years now.
That's dope. See, look, I'll be honest, man, growing up, like I didn't see a lot of like successful black people in the community. Like if there were successful black people, it might have been on television, or it might have been through the element of like whether it be sports or whatever the case is. And when I say successful, let me be clear. I mean, obviously our parents did everything they could; they were doing well, but I'm talking about like CEO or Like that, I didn't get exposed to that like up front early.
Yeah.
And the expectations, to be honest, like weren't as like high either, right? It was like, dude, you have two options: go to college or go to jail. That's what it is. Go to be on the streets, like you know what I'm saying, or go get an education, rack up some loans, and then figure it out, right? And make sure you get a job to be secure. But as I started evolving, man, I started growing. I'm like, wait a minute, like, and I started seeing some of my peers who don't look like me, right, or who not from my hue. What they were exposed to, right, and what they kind of got growing up, I think, you know, I could see why, like, oh snap, your father was a head of sales, right? Your father was a SVP. You got a different level of grooming, and so the expectation. And it's not to take away from them, but for us, those kind of stuff matter. Like, you know what I mean, in terms of upbringing. So it's interesting. So let's segue into like now everybody's in their careers, everybody's. I want to hear a little bit. I want to hear some like honest truth. What were some of the challenges for y'all being black, or if there is any challenges being black in the workplace?
I can start. For me, there's always been this idea like of exceptionalism. Like I said, going to college, there are not many brothers who don't play football and don't play basketball, you know, to be in college. So there's that. You are the only. So if in the workforce, you're the only black male, let's see how he does. Is he going to mess up? Is he going to be ethical? Is he overly sexual? Is he competent? Did he become hired because of his race? So I feel like you already have the stereotypes, the idea that black males are underperforming or that they have some criminal element to them or they're not trustworthy. But, you know, that creates added pressures. Like, I need to perform. I can't just be myself. I can't get too comfortable. Who do I trust? And then there's just a lack of likeness. Like, we tend to have an affinity for people who grow up like us or talk about the same things. So when you don't have that, you kind of feel like you're in a vacuum. You don't have the same network. You don't have the same resources. Sometimes those pressures can create internal issues. So I think a lot of it becomes mental, even if it's not like overt discrimination or people asking you inappropriate questions. Sometimes it's like, they don't understand me, and I have to play a role because I understand that if I don't do well, that they may not hire the next black man.
Person. So true, so true.
But that's one of the many, you know, sort of thoughts I have about that.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot as well, right? Because you figure in the early mid-90s, we weren't a lot of blacks or, you know, guys that looked like me doing desktop support and things like that with some of these corporations. But as I start seeing the folks that didn't look like me excel and make more money, how are you doing that, right? And it wasn't like somebody was telling me, take this certification, then you'll make this money. But as I saw that, I said, okay, I can do this too. And as I started progressing, I did see a lot of, you know, people looking and starting new jobs, and they want to know, how did you get here, right? They're not going to say that or ask that question to you,
Straight up,
right? But the things that I've always run into in the late 90s and the 2000s, when I started the job was, how many certifications do you have? And I always thought that was pretty funny because by the time I finished, you know, that person would be looking at me like dumbfounded, right? So I was like, well, I don't have that many, but it's okay, right? But that was the type of thing that I would always run into. Or it'd be the conferences, and you guys know this, right? Working for EMC and Dell and all that, you have these sales conferences. Well, as an engineer or a HP certified engineer, HP has these conferences. I'm one of the only black guys that's out there. You know, and it's like, you know, I'm going to be my authentic self, but in the same instance, I'm going to do what I have to do to keep my job.
So let me say this, because my relationship with Scott goes deep. When I first got my first corporate job at EMC and I became a field sales, one of my accounts was Ann Taylor. And every customer I used to go see at director level, CIO level, I have not run into one black person. And in my office, I'm the only black person. And I remember my first meeting, Scott Johnson. I was like, you know, Johnson can go either way. You know what I'm saying? You're right, Scott can go either way. So I rolled up in there and I saw it was a brother. And it was that instant like, yo, you know what I'm saying? And I remember I took Scott out, we went out to eat. And I was like, yo, what's the real, bro? There was this instant connection off the rip. And we had a lot of time where we talked about it. And at the time, you know, Ann was an underpenetrated account for us. We did no business with them. And I was like, yo, look, what's the deal? Like, how can I? And he became a coach and a friend real quick. And I'm telling this, I'm like, wow, the power of just connection between black people, man, is dope. That led it to a fruitful relationship for both of us because we ended up doing business together. We ended up like enjoying, like, you know what I'm saying? But as I reflect on it, I'm like, that's the kind of relationship sometimes that we're competing against. You know what I mean? You're walking into an environment and you're like, wow. And so when I think of the challenges and I think of the reflections, I was excited to see Scott. And he wasn't at the bottom of the food toll, like reporting to people. Like he was the one directing people where to go. Yeah. And as a seller in the enterprise space, he sees like, oh wow, there's a brother here who's young and hungry. He's gonna do right by me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Do right for each other.
You're giving me goosebumps as you're talking, man, because your story is my story, and I'm quite sure it's you other gentlemen's story as well. I'm literally getting goosebumps as you're talking, man, because I've experienced that my entire professional career. Either the only one, or maybe one of two if you're lucky. I struggled for a very, very long time, and I didn't know there was a terminology for it, and actually it was a thing, but with imposter syndrome.
Okay.
I struggled with that for a very long time.
Can you break that down?
Sure, absolutely. That, in essence, is feeling as though you don't belong. Feeling as though you're not qualified. Feeling as though you don't have the same equal right to be sitting at the same table. My entire career, I've done well. Hitting targets, checking all the boxes. I've been in sales and sales leadership my entire career. And it's frustrating when you can't walk into a room and instantly feel as though you can relate to the person sitting across the table from you. Having to, in order to fit in, to go out and do certain things or certain social events, that's really not, but you have to do it in order to check certain boxes to fit in, and you can't really relate. Like you said you guys met, you instantly felt that connection, and you were able to instantly connect on a level that you weren't able to connect with other clients in the past. And it's not a knock on anyone, but that's where the whole representation thing comes in, right? And that's really important because for me, in my entire career, it's made me uneasy. I was just telling this brother before we came in, I am usually in a tailored suit.
Yep, that's true.
You know that. Everybody that knows me, my entire career, a beard, I was just telling him, I've never had a beard my entire career until the past year or so.
Come on, man, talk about it.
And I've always been taught that you just have to be above. People are coming in t-shirts and whatever. I'm in my shirt and tie, tailored suit. Like, why don't you? You can't, because you're looked at, I believe, and from my experience, in a different way and held to different
standards?
Different standards. Different standards, man. And it's tough. And in addition to all the other human things that you're dealing with, being imperfect, trying to make sure that you're taking care of your family, trying to make sure that you're doing X, Y, Z, all the human things, you now have this other layer of things that you have to battle through in order to make your number. And it's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough. So that's that. I guess that's my 2 cents.
It's funny you say that. And so, Will, full disclosure, that's my little brother. He's following the same track that I went through. And I was telling him, like, I wish I had someone to kind of guide me. Like, if I'm straight up, and I'm just being real, when I started my career, I felt I couldn't be authentically myself. I had to sound like a white person. I had to look like a white person. I had to dress like them. That's the only way that I'll be welcomed in the arena. So me connecting with Scott was relief because I was able to take a deep breath. I was able to dap him up, not in front of everybody, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we went to basketball games, I could just chill. Like, I didn't have to put up this facade. But here's the thing though, guys, like, that's not sustainable. Like, I've been trying to do that for like years, and I'm mentally like issue. And so when I started watching a lot of the things that's happening in our world from a social perspective, right? I started to look at all that stuff. I'm like, yo, they're gonna either hate me or love me. I'm no longer being a facade or a prop. I ain't trying to climb up nobody's corporate ladder. Like when I think of black excellence, it's being true to who you are, one, and two, also living out your purpose, regardless of what anyone thinks. So I think for me, like when I reflect on that, it's like, I'm encouraging folk, you got to do it. I want to segue, Will, into this, the importance of having mentorship or people that look like you in leadership. So maybe you could talk to, in your career, the role of having a black leader who's looking out for you is played, and why things like that are so important for us.
Yeah, I think ultimately to climb up any corporate ladder, you need people to champion you and people to acknowledge some of the things that you do that's right. And then ultimately, I understand being one of the only few black people in the company, finding a mentor that's navigated their way through a very good career. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? He understands and can empathize with where I'm at with my career, some of the struggles that I'm having, and build me up and give me the platform to do my thing, and I'll do well, right? That belief, that confidence that having a black mentor instills in me, and then gives you opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
So in my sense, just personally through your connection with Lawrence in EMC, 10 years later now, he becomes a district manager and has a role open for MetLife. And he gives me a call on Friday. He says, "Hey, there's a job open, and do you want to apply for it?" So of course I would, right? So just him giving me the ability to to highlight some of the things I've been doing, and then to go and then give me executive sponsorship to people above him to go at bat for you, right? That speaks volumes. And having someone who, like I said, navigated successfully through their career, he can teach me and guide me, right? So now he's my manager, which who knows how often you can have a black manager in corporate America. It's very seldom does that happen.
So look, I want to provide a little bit of context to folks watching. So when I started at EMC, I want to say back in 2010, Lawrence and I were colleagues, we were peers, and we would always talk what it's like. Yo, man, it's hard out here. We always rap. And he always kept it real with me. He was like, "Don't worry, I got you, brother. I got you." I went to the field. He stayed within our inside sales construct. By the way, at EMC, I was the first person to go to. That wasn't a thing. Like we never made it to the field. Like African Americans, I was the first one, right, in its years of existence. So we go to the field. Me and Lawrence separate for years. Lawrence went to go get a job or request for a job, and the area leader told him, "You can't handle these kind of accounts, right? You can't handle this kind of stuff." That person moved on, and not only did Lawrence get that role, he got the director's position, what would be over that role, the manager who would manage that. Lawrence comes to me and says, "Hey, look, man, I'm looking out for your brother, right? I'm looking out for Will. I have to take care of my brother." Now, this is not taking away from Will's talent. He's extremely gifted. He's sharp. And we're not saying like just put anybody along, but nobody's looking out for us in these corporations like other people are. Yeah. And Willie goes through the process. He gets the job, and he texts me and says, "Yo, I'm my brother's keeper." And this is the power of connection and looking out for one another. You mentioned it before, kind of paving the way. This is why we always got to operate in excellence, right? But at the same time, we got to pave the way for the next folk coming in.
I've seen that my entire career, exactly what you're talking about, but just in the reverse. Because again, I never saw people that look like me coming up through my entire career. I've been in technology now for about 18 years. I have never, not once, had a black manager, black supervisor, a black leader. My entire career, I've worked for some of the largest technology companies in the world. Matter of fact, my entire tech career saw the name brand of all the top tech companies in the world. And I not once ever had a black leader, someone that I could relate to, someone that came up from East Orange and Newark, New Jersey, somebody that grew up on welfare, somebody whose parents cleaned bathrooms for a living to put food on their table. I not once had that experience in my entire career, but I saw that happening all around me, and that's how people were moving ahead, because they had people they can relate to, people that had their back from a sponsorship position. And you got to go in and you got to prove yourself, and I get that. But even if you check those boxes, because I went to the President's Clubs, I've checked those boxes, I've done all those things, but you still have to be able to connect on that level with that person for them to see you as themselves, their younger selves, for them to want to bring you along. I haven't had that in my entire career. And that's what led me to do what I'm doing today. trying to open the door for people that look like me, trying to give them an opportunity so they don't have to go through a lot of the things that I went through, even though it made me tougher.
Yeah.
It made me who I am today. But a lot of it, from my perspective, is unnecessary.
Look, you need an executive sponsor. Yeah. Let me tell you right now, my best year, my best sales career, when I think I finished 342% of my number, no executive sponsorship. You know what they were saying? He got lucky. Literally laughed at all the years that I put into my craft. The ability that I put in my relationship, oh, he got lucky. Following year, hit the number again. Oh, how does he keep doing it? So it's these kind of things that, man, if we're not, and I'm not saying this is everywhere, but it's there. And what you said earlier, man, it's even in the, just walking into an office when you're the only black person is already mentally draining. Yeah. That black tax is a real thing. Forget before you got into the office, all the stuff that we're seeing throughout the world. And when we leave the office, all the stuff, walking in and not seeing someone that look like me, I'm already starting at like negative 50%. Like, you know what I'm saying? So these kind of little add-ons, man, it's hard. And we could push D&I, we could try all this stuff, but it's going to require more than that, right? And so I mean, look, again, we could talk about this all day, and I want to be cognizant of the time that we have. I guess my question to y'all, man, is what can we tell the next generation of black folks who are coming up, who want to do something, who want to get it right? Look, they don't want to be on these streets. Like, you know what I'm saying? They need to hear from people like y'all. And I love just all of y'all, man. And don't even address it to me. If y'all can just direct address to the camera specifically, and we'll go around the horn. We'll start with you and go this way. But what could we tell young black folks?
Yeah, I think when it comes to crafting your story, and everyone's story is different, it's understanding that what separates you is ultimately what's going to help you accelerate your career. I think a lot of times, especially in corporate America, a lot of people try to assimilate, right, to what they think is right or how they think they should sound. I would say, forget that. At the end of the day, your unique story is what's going to get you to the next level. Don't try to fit in. Just be yourself, right? And work hard and trust yourself and your ability, and then good things will happen naturally. And then any roadblocks that come, find a mentor and use that mentor, right? And yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome.
I agree with Will, and also keep your eyes on the prize. I think, we're playing a long game. I heard Oprah say every single thing that is happening to you is preparing you for the moment that is to come. Every day won't be easy. There are going to be obstacles and roadblocks, but stay clear on your focus and remember your family. Remember the people who invested in you. Also reach behind, try to pull people up, but think about progress, day by day, hour by hour. And you'll see progress, and we have to look out for each other. We have to go hard, and I think we all have that hustle in us. We just have to figure out, sometimes the hustle is not entertainment, it's not in sports, it's in corporate America, it's in government, there are other ways to be successful. So don't always look at success as you have to be a millionaire. You can get the things you want and have the freedom and access to different places, and you can live an ordinary life. And I think a lot of us want that. So, we have to start becoming good people, look out for each other, and continue to just go hard. I think there's so many ways to experience success despite obstacles. So just continue to go hard.
I love that.
Yeah.
I got a chance to do some thinking as the brothers were talking, man. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is embrace failure. You are going to fail. You are going to make mistakes. Embrace it. There is a lesson in it. You will not see it when you're going through it. There is a lesson in it. Learn that lesson. Seek out that lesson. Get to a quiet place and try to figure out what that lesson is and keep going. Because the difference between the person that makes it and the person that doesn't is the keep going part. You are going to fail. It is not easy. You have other layers that your colleagues, peers that don't look like you do not have. Understand that, accept it, embrace it, and keep going. Do not stop. You will find what it is you're meant to do in life if you keep trying and you do not get discouraged. I think that's my 2-second advice to others that are out there listening today: just embrace failure and keep going, and you will find your purpose and you will be successful.
Wow, how do you follow embrace failure, right? But that's great, brother. First of all, it's you matter, right? You matter, and especially if you're going into a technology field, if you're in STEM, my suggestions are education, internships while you're in high school, right? I think that's the key. And then as you go to college, you become an engineer, build your network. Whether it's some type of organization, a Greek or affiliated organization, or a professional organization, build your network up, because that's where you'll find a lot of good mentors that we won't see in corporate America, right? Because it could be black MBAs or black engineers that you're a part of that organization, and you will find that mentor. You might not find it at your first company, but folks will still be interested in what you're trying to do. But again, it's stay on your grind, and just know that you matter, your thoughts matter, and you will be successful if you put the work in.
That's awesome. Look, I just wanted to say thank you to all these brothers, man. I just appreciate it. It's not easy being vulnerable, especially in a platform that it's gonna be on the web. You know what I mean? But look, we need to have this conversation, and I think it needs to. I think our younger generation need to hear directly from us, right? And they need to know that we are in these arenas as well, and we're fighting not just for us, but we're fighting for them. Because it's not just the pressure if we do well, we got it on our back, but we want to make sure that wherever we work, we leave our mark. We want to make sure wherever we work that we're creating a space where it's comfortable for black people to be there and operate. So it might be a little bit easier, so when they come, it won't be so awkward, it won't be so tense. Maybe there'll be more black people. So again, I want to appreciate y'all brothers for being on the show, on this episode, man, and I really look forward to the changes you guys always continue to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. I appreciate y'all.